What's up guys, this is Anime Crossover. I'm back with a new episode of What If Naruto Was Spider-Man with the Power of Speed Force Part 3. And if you did enjoy the video, give this video a like, and if you want to like my content, subscribe and hit the notification bell for more crossover fictions. Now let's begin this new video.
Chapter 10, Ha Ha Ha. The electric maniac smiled as he effortlessly soared into the night sky, slaughtering the lower lifeforms beneath him like they were nothing more than ants beneath his boot. He reveled in the chaos, taking the lives of the helpless. It gave him the impression that he was God. He was assaulting Times Square because of all the energy that was present in the area. It was virtually limitless. The billboards, displays, and lights would all be used to power up the villain and bring him one step closer to becoming pure energy, just as he desired. As he hurled bolts of yellow lightning at unsuspecting citizens, police cars and helicopters began to approach in an attempt to stop the villain from wreaking further havoc. "This is the NYPD, put down your weapons, or else we will use lethal force." The officer speaking was clearly doubting both his own ability and those of his colleagues. The tone of his voice made it plain. He was terrified by the figure in front of him. He feared the alleged god, but he had to perform his job and try to stop the monster in the end. Electro laughed at the officer's pitiful comments before declaring his godhood once more. "You peon, you can't tell God what he can or cannot do. How about I show you a small portion of what I'm capable of?" Electro directed a single finger at one of the police helicopters before causing the tail rotor to explode with a thin but precise electric bolt. The helicopter's pilot attempted to recover control. His efforts were useless, however, as the truck continued to spin uncontrollably. The pilot and his passengers could only watch as the helicopter began to plunge toward the ground, crashing into a throng of innocent citizens attempting to flee the turmoil. In fear of their own doom, the townspeople, officers, and pilot all closed their eyes. Moments passed, which became into extended seconds of silence, forcing everyone who had already counted themselves out to gently open their eyes and look about. A web hammock held the helicopter in place, shielding the earthlings from the helicopter and preventing the helicopter from collapsing. "Look!" one of the civilians shouted up, pointing to the hero who had saved them. The Phantom Spider had saved them all with his webs and was now swinging away to prevent the nasty electric guy from wreaking any further harm. Electro was shooting electric bolts recklessly, oblivious to the hero swinging behind him as he chuckled maniacally with each bolt of lightning he fired down toward the earth. Whether it was the god or Zeus, the villain felt like a god. His godhood would soon be established and recognized by all. So he reasoned. "HRA, from behind the electric, crazy, god," the Phantom Spider shouted, forcing him to turn his head slightly. Crack. Using all of his strength, the child delivered a powerful, electrified punch to the side of Electro's skull, sending him plummeting down toward the earth and through a structure, similar to how Electro treated Spider-Man just a day before. Unlike our hero, Electro surged out from beneath the rubble, flying toward Spider-Man with a murderous stare and leaving a trail of yellow sparks behind him. "That damned bug isn't going away." As he began charging both fists with electricity, Electro's inner voice shrieked. He angrily fired bolts of electricity at Spider-Man, but this time, the youngster was ready and waiting for his onslaught. The black-clad hero danced around the bolts like an acrobat, pulling his weight with his webs, spinning and whirling around the bolts as though everything was moving in slow motion to him. Spider-Man flung a web at Electro's chest with a single hand, dodging his energy blasts before tugging him toward himself and kicking him in the face. Electro then accelerated toward the ground, smashing into a car with such force that the car became nothing more than a scrap of metal beneath him. Electro's face was struck by the Phantom Spider's fist as the child began hammering at him with full-powered, electric punches before he could even think. Electro's head would aggressively move side to side with each strike, nearly bending his neck as he sought to summon enough energy to fight back. Unbeknownst to our hero, Electro was sucking the car's meager energy supply. It was too late for the dark hero to comprehend what was going on. BZZZRT. The Phantom Spider was sent flying across Times Square and crashed into a little shop after Electro unleashed a powerful beam of electricity. His body came to a halt beside roughly 10 people who had taken refuge inside the building from Electro. They looked at the hero with horror in their eyes, yet there were faint glimpses of hope beneath those frightening gazes when they saw the Phantom Spider's insignia on his chest. "It's that spider guy from the news," someone murmured voice. "Yeah, I read about him in the Daily Bugle. They called him a threat, yet look at him now. He's fighting that psycho outside." An older man's voice murmured something different. "Mommy, is he here to save us?" A tiny child sobbed as she clutched her mother's hand. Seeing the people who needed to be saved, who needed Spider-Man to help them, inspired the youngster to get up and walk. I am. Just. The hero observed something across the street. Electro's onslaught had not yet concluded, but was just getting started. The hero spoke confidently, not showing any signs of weakness or fear. Just hang tight, everyone. I got this. The child dashed out of the building, leaping over a water truck and swinging for the villain who was about to attack. Electro, using his electrokinesis talents, unchained a crane and began tossing it toward the building where the Phantom Spider was originally housed. He wanted to crush Spider-Man, oblivious to the innocent people inside. Regardless, even if he had known, it would have made no difference to him. As the crane began to fall, our hero, the Phantom Spider, a teenage trenchcoat-clad vigilante, held the crane near its base with all of his strength. Despite his strength, the immense machinery began to overwhelm him, still slowly plummeting down toward the huddled innocents hiding inside the structure he'd fled. The crane would have crashed into the building and killed everyone inside if it hadn't been for the water truck in front of it, which began to pour water everywhere as it helped sustain the weight of the crane. When the sheltering innocents realized they were in danger, they began to evacuate the building, scattering in different directions just in time for the Phantom Spider and the water truck to fall, allowing the crane to reduce the building to rubble. After being crushed to near death by the crane, the Phantom Spider lay beneath the machine, unable to move an inch, seeing nothing but dust and debris. He was powerless. He couldn't lift the machine by himself since it was too heavy. He knew that as soon as the dust settled, the innocent lives he had worked so hard to save would be charmed by the self-proclaimed god named Electro. With nothing left in the tank, the child gazed up at the night sky, taking one last glimpse at the stars before he died. I knew it, he reasoned. I wasn't made to be a hero. His thoughts then turned to who he was leaving behind, though it was only a few people. Cindy. He remembered the woman he adored but never told. Harry, his friend, despite only knowing each other for a few months, would also be left behind. As his eyesight faded, he sensed the presence of someone he recognized. A familiar voice spoke to the young guy, calling his name. Naruto. Naruto. Naruto searched the area for the source of the sound. His vision was still fuzzy, but when he glanced around his surroundings, it gradually improved. He found himself in an automobile, possibly one from his past. The sunroof was open, as if he were stargazing from the inside, like he had been before he gave up. Did you hear me, Naruto? I'm speaking to you. The voice spoke once more. Naruto's voice sounded 10 years younger than he was. How come I sound like that? Where have I gone? In contrast to the one that emerged from his mouth, his inner mature voice talked in his mind. I said, do you remember what today is? The voice stated it again, as if the speaker was eager to divulge something to the boy. I recognized this voice. Naruto's inner voice spoke to him again, sounding like his young adult self. His vision was nearly clear at this stage. He tilted his head and looked to the side, trying to figure out where the voice was coming from. His eyes expanded as he concentrated on the speaker's face. It had to be his mother. Mom? Naruto's little voice yelled, his eyes wide, and his tiny face flushed with confusion. His mother frowned slightly, perplexed and concerned as to why her young son had been terrified so soon. Yes, Naruto, are you okay? You're alive? The youngster inquired. His mother appeared perplexed in response to her son's evidently wild outburst. Boy, what the hell are you going on about? She inquired, her anxious expression intensifying. Naruto sat calmly in his seat, not saying anything, perplexed by what had just occurred. He had just fought to the death against a man who had almost reached the point of being made of pure lightning, yet he appeared to be sitting in a car stargazing with his mother at the time. Was it all a nightmare? As he looks down at his now childish form, he asks himself. However, if it was a dream, he pondered why his inner voice was still that of the 18-year-old version of himself. What exactly do you mean, Naruto? Am I still alive? Her speech sounded as if she was very concerned about her son. He told her this made her feel nervous because she believed in superstitions. I'm not sure. I believe I had a bad dream or something. As he stroked his little face, the toddler replied. Oh. Okay. She returned to Naruto with a bewildered and concerned gaze before shaking it off. Well, do you know what today is? No, Naruto tried to recall the date, but he couldn't even comprehend what was occurring in front of him. It's December, she said this while grinning from ear to ear. Naruto looked at her with a blank and bewildered expression, unsure of what she was saying. The 26th of December. Naruto, this is your birthday. Did you forget about your own birthday? She kept her worried expression on as she spoke, wondering if he had hit his head and suffered brain damage in any way. It's my birthday. It's the month of December. He gazed out the window, which caused his eyes to light up with what he saw. He could see Christmas lights and decorations as far as the eye could see in the concrete jungle in front of him. I'm sorry that we had to spend Christmas and your birthday sleeping in a car like this. His mother couldn't even look at him while she said this, like if she were a letdown. But it isn't all bad. I was able to get you something that you've been asking for. As she searched for something in the car's glove compartment, her sorrowful countenance softened into a faint smile. This is for both your birthday and Christmas, so merry late Christmas and happy birthday, Naruto. She handed Naruto a gift-wrapped package, jogging his memories of what was inside. I recall this. Naruto's inner adult voice spoke up. That's correct. It's my 8th birthday. We'd been evicted a few months before because she couldn't pay the rent on her own when Dad died. Go ahead, open it up. With a loving smile, his mother urged him to begin pulling the paper off the green and red wrapped package. That's correct. This is the same year I received my. As he opened the present, he continued to think to himself. As he did so, his memories of that time began to flood back to him. He remembered the gift he received that day as soon as the wrapping paper was removed. It was a Pokemon Emerald Game Boy SP. That's correct. This game must have taken me 1,000 hours to complete. For a while, it was the only game I had. He thought to himself as he looked at the wrapper again and again. Do you like it? You mentioned you wanted the one with the Pokemon, but there are so many various colors to choose from, including red, blue, and orange. She hoped he appreciated the gift because that was all they could afford at the time. Yes, exactly what I wanted. Thank you very much, Mom. Naruto's voice grew weaker as he spoke. The rush of emotions he had that day came rushing back to him in real time. I'm glad. His mother breathed a sigh of relief when she stated this, relieved that he was pleased with the gift. These Game Boy things have been really hard to find. Your father and I were able to get that one before. Her smile faded into a somber expression as she remembered her husband, his father, Richard Parker. I apologize, Naruto. I'm sorry things are the way they are. The death of your father. We had to leave our house. I live in a car. Being unable to provide you with a memorable Christmas or birthday. This will not always be the case. I guarantee that one day we'll be able to move somewhere and I'll enroll you in a better school. Tears streamed down his mother's cheeks as she apologized profusely to her kid. Don't worry, Mom. This is not your fault. Besides, I'm pleased with my present. Naruto smiled warmly in an attempt to cheer her up. His depression hadn't yet made that expression uncommon in his life. The present-day Naruto, who appears to be confined within himself, recognized this as well after seeing himself exhibit such satisfaction. She gazed at Naruto with a solemn expression and placed one hand on his cheek, tears still in her eyes. I might not always be here for you, Naruto. As more tears streamed down her cheeks, she said to him. However, I promise, while I am present, I'll do everything. I will do everything in my ability to raise you to be a strong man one day. And what if I don't make it? To see you mature and become a man. The boy, scarred, murmured words to his mother. Mom? Why are you speaking in this manner? Tears welled up around Naruto's eyes before falling down his 8-year-old cheeks. Never, ever give up, Naruto. Regardless of how difficult life becomes, even if I'm gone and you're on your own, continue your journey. Naruto, you're a genius. And, despite your youth, you are strong. If you happen to get knocked to the ground. Naruto heard both his mother's voice and his own present-day voice speaking to him at the same time. Get back up. Naruto opened his eyes and spun around to find Electro charging up with electricity and a shit-eating smile on his face. Electro would attack people hiding beneath the dust as soon as it was cleaned. Wait, what was that? Naruto reflected to himself. Does that mean your life flashes before your eyes? It seemed as though I had just relived a memory. It's my 8th birthday. His body was still numb from being stunned from within as he tried to absorb what had transpired. He didn't realize it at the time, but this was a side consequence of his own powers interacting with Roxanne's new form. He had relived that memory, which was true but somewhat altered. Rise back up. His inner voice informed him. Get back on your feet. His inner voice spoke to him once more. Eventually, the hero mustered enough strength to remove the crane off his fatigued, exhausted body. Though not visible, the boy's face cringed in anguish as he gave everything he had to hoist that crane. Rise back up. In his head, his mother's voice resonated, urging him even more. Unconsciously, a blue aura of electricity surrounds his arms and legs as he pushes harder, generating more strength. His muscles, which were hidden exactly as his face, contracted violently as he pushed with his entire body. Rise back up. His inner voice prodded him once again. The hero was now on one knee, pushing the crane upward, and loud cracking sounds could be heard coming from his body. Electro, who was still charging his body, could see blue sparks of electricity through the dust as it cleared. Get up. The kid's inner voice, as well as his mother's, prodded him one more time, providing the boy with the final push he needed to shove the crane off of himself and rush out from beneath it. Meanwhile, Electro extended his hand toward the civilians and began to discharge lightning from his fingertips. Although the hero did not yet have the entire aura of energy surrounding him, white hair, or the ability to run at super speeds, he was able to use this new, blue energy to push himself off the ground and flash step toward those in need. The phantom spider arrived at the civilians just as the electricity burst from Electro's hands, realizing the Electro wasn't necessarily shooting at them, but at the water beneath them in an attempt to fry them all to death. The child outran the superconductive liquid and grabbed all four running people with his extended arms, scooping them up and utilizing his new power to push off the ground and leap away from the danger. After landing somewhere safe, the hero advised the civilians to evacuate. Run! The youngster demanded them, leading the terrified innocents to flee the danger. The boy's limbs gleamed with a dazzling blue aura, as observed by the little girl he saved as she gazed back while being carried away from the scene by her mother. His newfound power had finally shown itself fully. Please accept my best wishes. The phantom spider faced the electric man as he hovered above the hero, his limbs shining brightly from the electricity running through him. Electro was becoming increasingly irritated with the child underneath him, the bug disrupting his exhibition of godhood and his journey to become pure energy. The phantom spider, on the other hand, was enraged. The guy who claimed to be a god hovered above him, staring down on the hero as the bodies of people he couldn't save before his arrival and destruction encircled him. Despite having previously lost to Electro, he was confident. His new ability was going to be the key to putting an end to the Electric Man. Electro. The phantom spider yelled angrily at the god that floated above him. This ends here. The child was satisfied that such assured statements were correct. He observed that his brain was operating faster than usual, allowing him to come up with a plan in a matter of seconds. That vest has to be some kind of inhibitor. If I can get it off his back, he could overcharge himself. Before that, I needed to find a means to short-circuit him long enough to take it off. The water. There has to be more water somewhere. His eyes scanned the area for another water truck or any other source of water that he could utilize to temporarily slow down the Electric Man. His gaze nearly caught on a fire hydrant, though he took care not to make it evident in order to keep his plan from Electro. That is crucial. Okay, Parker. Let us assassinate this god. The hero of the night dashed ahead, dodging Electro's lightning bolts with an even greater speed than before. He was invincible as he zipped from side to side, as though dodging rounds from a child's toy gun. Who's the deity now? As he began flash-stepping up a nearby building, he thought to himself. With each stride, one of the building's screens would turn off due to his abilities interacting with them. No, I'm not a god, he says. As he continued up the skyscraper, escaping the lightning strikes that trailed after him, he reached the height where Electro was hovering. Using a Godspeed-infused leap, the hero leapt backward, exceeding the altitude of the so-called and self-proclaimed god. I don't need to perceive myself that way. I am only a man, a mortal who will confront these so-called gods on behalf of those who cannot. The little hero webbed Electro's electric bolt-slinging right arm with his webs. The phantom spider jerked Electro's arm to the side just as he was about to throw another bolt, causing the bolt to fly in the opposite direction and disappear into the clouds above. I may be a man with flaws. The child webbed Electro's left hand with his other hand. The trenchcoat-wearing hero yanked his webs forward, causing Electro to fly uncontrolled skyward as the boy's body was blasted downward toward the earth and the villain. However, my weakness strengthened me, strong enough to defeat gods, such as yourself. That is why I am going to call this power of mine Godspeed, the power that permits me to keep up with alleged gods like you. Just as those words left his mind, the hero kicked Electro in the chest with both legs, sending them both falling toward the earth with incredible velocity. Electro slammed into the earth like a meteorite, leaving a human-sized crater in the roadway beneath him. Spider-Man launched another torrent of blows toward Electro's face, this time bolstered by Godspeed's energy. Electro attempted to strike back, but Spider-Man knew he would be retaliated upon. The hero tied the man to the ground with his webs and began striking him with virtually everything he had. Crack 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 crack. Each blow was heard by both fighters and any close onlookers as the sounds of electric fists hitting flesh resonated off the buildings of the concrete jungle. Eventually, Electro was visibly feeling the effects of the attacks, despite the fact that his vest was still shielded by an electric field. Using Godspeed, the hero dashed toward a nearby fire hydrant, pulling a manhole from the ground before kicking the hydrant's top off as if it were weightless. Water spewed from the hydrant, allowing the phantom spider to take the manhole cover and aim it at an angle where the water rebounded off and soared through the air, hitting Electro just as he was about to free himself from his webbed shackles. The child Flash stepped once more, this time approaching the electric killer before jumping on top of him. Electro's body convulsed and jerked fast, just like the hero's did the day before, due to his electric body responding with his one weakness, water. The phantom spider, who has no fear of water despite never learning to swim, began pulling the metal vest off of Electro's chest while water continued to blast them both. "Wait," the villain yelled in a distorted voice, "please, I'm going to blow up." The phantom spider paused for only a second before speaking. "It's not like this'll kill you." He said this despite the fact that he didn't know for sure. "I swear I'll die if it doesn't, please." Electro pleaded with the hero for his life, hoping that his words, whether real or untrue, would stop Spider-Man's attack. The hero hesitated once more, having a fleeting flashback of Wilson Fisk and his daughter. Those dreams, the ghost of Fisk and visions of his ruined family, tormented the youngster, despite the fact that letting this man go would result in more deaths than his life was worth. Regardless of his emotions, the hero successfully ripped Electro's vest off of his body, resulting in a large electrical explosion. The phantom spider flew backward, landing on a traffic light and perching on top of it to observe the electric man's body quiver furiously as he began to overcharge with electricity. Electro's body began to inflate as there was too much energy flowing through him, and Times Square began to darken as the villain took away all of the power in the area. There was one more explosion, which caused the hero to hide his eyes as his costume fluttered backward owing to the force of the blast. After the explosion, the boy approached Electro's body, disgustedly staring down at it. The self-proclaimed god had degenerated into a husk. His once pale skin had turned jet black, as if he had turned into charcoal. His skin was extremely dry and fragile, as if it were ready to shatter into little pieces if the wind blew hard enough on him. Every few seconds, his body twitched in agony as the deity felt the pain of hell through his scorching skin. The stench of burnt flesh quickly permeated the air, forcing the hero to wince beneath his mask. Of course, Electro was still alive, whether that was a good or bad thing, but his career as a villain was gone. His life as a man was ended, and he was essentially a vegetable at that moment. "Kill me, please," he moaned to the hero, causing the child beneath his goggles to scowl. The hero was both offended and enraged by those statements. The self-proclaimed god was unconcerned about alleviating the anguish of the dozens of people he killed, and he was equally unconcerned when he nearly killed hundreds in the Roxxon explosion. To suddenly ask for compassion after all of that was pitiful to Spider-Man. "Did you kill yourself? You're a jerk. You deserve every second of this agony. You scum, I hope you live a great, long life like this." As those remarks escaped the boy's mouth, the cops who had been lurking all along emerged from their holes like cowards. Helicopters began to arrive, circling the hero and villain and pointing their weapons and spotlights at them as if they were the same person. "Raise your hands. Don't budge. You both of you," the phantom spider inquired loudly. He just saved all those lives, potentially hundreds or thousands in the great scheme of things if Electro got his way and became pure energy, but this was his reward for being the hero. The child cautiously raised his hands, intending to flee before a woman's dominating voice spoke to her subordinates. "Stop right now. You idiots, he's on our side." As an Asian woman with short black hair emerged from one of the recently arrived police cruisers, the policemen immediately lowered their rifles. She approached Spider-Man and extended her hand with a confident countenance and stride that matched her powerful words. "I apologize for that. My name is Yuri Watanabe." The hero shook her hand despite his mistrust of the woman. "What do you want?" "A thank you would have been nice," she remarked sarcastically. "I'm here to request your assistance. Here." The officer handed him a card bearing her name and phone number. "Call me when you get a chance. As you know, these guys don't do their jobs well. Don't you think so?" Nonetheless, the hero did not believe her. He hesitantly took her number and consented despite the fact that she was a cop. "Of course, I'll call you. I'm leaving before your trigger-happy friends get any ideas." The figure Flash stepped away, disappearing into the darkness, before Yuri could answer. The child began swinging to clear his mind after he was far enough away and certain that he wasn't being followed. He considered Fisk again, even his daughter. He pondered if killing the man was a mistake, if it would have been wiser to find a method to imprison him. Fisk's power would have been restricted in prison, but he may have escaped nevertheless. That is, at least, what the hero convinced himself. He then wondered if Electro had a family, what they were like, and how their family dynamic must have been. However, the child soon realized that a man like that most likely had no family. If Electro had no family, he and Naruto were much more alike than the two had previously imagined. He wondered what the minor difference between them was that caused them to be on opposing sides. Why did one desire power and the other validation? Why did one want annihilation while the other desired preservation? Those feelings soon faded as the hero returned to his house. Exhausted, the hero stripped down to his boxers and fell asleep. He had given everything he had in that little combat, and now he was taking a well-deserved rest. The phantom spider swung over a crowd in Times Square, stretching out to let people touch his hand as if he were a celebrity. As their hero was now within reach, their thunderous voices were all singing his name. They all loved him because he saved the city from Electro and saved numerous lives throughout their encounters. As the child swung above the crowd, he observed a small girl in the middle of it all, staring down at the ground. She was the only one who didn't care for the hero, the only one who saw right through the hero's ruse. He was no hero, she realized. She was familiar with the real man. The child was alone, as if everyone else was trying to avoid her. Nobody cared about her. No one even noticed her presence. The only person who saw her was the hero himself. When the girl finally looked up at him, he recognized her. Fisk's daughter had returned to haunt him. Her hands were bloodied, but it wasn't her blood. The hero quickly found himself standing in front of the girl, as if he had teleported, and the crowd had vanished. His hands, like the small girl's, were stained with blood. He observed Kingpin's mutilated body beneath him as he stared at his now crimson gloves. He returned his gaze to the girl, noting the horrible expression on her face. She was exactly like him on the night he murdered her father. Spiteful, furious, but he was also heartbroken and afraid. The ringing of his phone's alarm jolted the sleeping hero up from his nightmare. The boy sighed and reached for his phone, fumbling with it before turning off the shrieking, repeating alarm. He was haunted by a similar nightmare once more. Why won't they leave? He pondered as he gazed down at his hands. Though they were not as crimson as in his nightmare, they were still stained with blood. The youngster eventually calmed down and leaned up from his bed, as if he were made of stone. His body felt sore, not only from fighting an electrified supervillain but also from unlocking a new power. His body hadn't yet been accustomed to Godspeed. Despite his displeasure, the hero had to return to class because it was Monday. The child went through his customary ritual before walking to the bus station. When he got on the bus, he realized that everyone was thrilled about something. Each student was staring at their phones, apparently viewing the same video of the phantom spider confronting Electro. Did someone record me? Why didn't they run if humans were so stupid? The undercover hero moved by his classmates before taking his favored seat in the bottom row of the bus. As he sat in his seat, he realized that most of the pupils had grown fond of the hero. For once, he felt accepted by his peers, despite the fact that the man in the video was merely his other half. He adored the phantom spider, but he knew that love could only go so far. While on campus, the hero noted how excited the other students were about the new hometown hero. Even before the Avengers vanished, there was no hero who the city could fully call their own. For the townsfolk, having a superhero living among them was like the local sports team winning a championship. Even Flash Thompson, who was utterly fanboying over the phantom spider at his locker as Naruto walked by, was chatting about him. Bro, tell me you saw how he ran up that skyscraper, blue sparks trailing behind him. He's really cool. I wonder if I can get him on my YouTube channel. Flash was an ambitious influencer who used his parents' money to host parties and create clickbait videos that simple-minded kids clicked on and devoured. Not happening, Naruto reflected as he passed his old bully. As the secret hero moved farther into the school grounds, he came across Cindy Moon, who was carrying a brown paper bag. The two teens' eyes lit up as soon as they saw each other, and Cindy smiled gently. "Oh, good day, Naruto. Did you eat your breakfast?" No," Naruto responded bluntly, taken aback by the question because no one would ever ask him that randomly. He had been feeling a little down since the bus ride because so many people seemed to care about the phantom spider but not the man behind the mask. He had the impression that no one cared about him, but he soon recognized that those were only ridiculous thoughts in his head. Naruto's once tight physique relaxed as he spoke with Cindy Moon, having realized the truth. Cindy reached into the brown bag and brought out a blueberry muffin, which also happened to be the boy's favorite type. He'd only mentioned it once, but she remembered it vividly. In fact, Naruto couldn't recall ever telling her that knowledge, which astonished him. Here, I know you sometimes skip breakfast, so I baked them for you. Isn't blueberry your favorite? Cindy smiled cheerfully as she delivered the muffin to the undercover hero before her face flushed with shame. She immediately recognized how the sentence sounded, and despite the fact that it was true, she didn't want him to know. I didn't make them specifically for you or anything. That'd be strange. I merely baked them and thought to myself, oh, Naruto skips breakfast sometimes, so I should bring them. Not that I wouldn't make something for you in the future, I just didn't do it right now. Naruto gazed at her, little puzzled, before taking the muffin from her grasp. He was too dense to comprehend why she was acting so oddly, so he rejected it. I enjoy blueberry muffins, thank you very much. Do I get one? As he emerged seemingly out of nowhere, Harry Osborn placed his hand on Naruto's shoulder from behind him. No, I'm not serious. However, is this your girlfriend? Naruto told Harry about liking a girl at school, but he never revealed who it was. He studied the two friends intently, trying to gauge their emotions. Naruto grew agitated for a brief while, which was unusual for him. Despite the fact that it was a brief minute, Harry noticed it. As he thought to himself, he laughed within. Interesting, so she's the one. No, we're just friends. Naruto turned to Cindy and used his thumb to indicate back at Harry. This is Harry, my friend. He's in the same after-school program as I am. Harry waved to Cindy and introduced himself with a smile. Hey. Hi, I'm Cindy, she answered by shyly waving back at him. Well, I guess I'd best get going. It was a pleasure to meet you. Harry made a quick getaway after realizing what he was doing. He kept his smile on his face until he turned the corner, leaving the other two alone. Following Harry's departure, the two teenagers ate their muffins together, shortly before the ring called them to class. They both agreed to meet after school, so when their time at school was out, the two reconvened at the door. Hey, what are you up to today? As the two walked off campus together, Cindy asked Naruto. Well, I was planning on going home. I have math homework to accomplish today, and I've been slacking so. The Parker youngster, once again dense and clueless, responded directly. Cindy, on the other hand, took advantage of the situation to grow closer to him. No way, I was going to do my homework today as well. Let's do it together. How far away is your house? As soon as those words left her mouth, the foolish genius's heart missed a beat. Does she want to come over? In his head, his inner voice panicked. Cindy went on. I think we actually live pretty close. Do you walk or take the bus? Naruto, taken aback by her directness, responded. Yeah, it's not a long walk, but I take the bus when I'm tired. Would you like to come over? Naruto exerted every ounce of his being to avoid sounding apprehensive while speaking, and it mostly worked. She simply nodded. I'm kinda lost after the last lecture. You're super smart, so, yeah. This was an obvious falsehood. She received the greatest grade of anyone in the class, including Naruto, who had begun to slack off a little. She only wants an excuse to visit him. I see, surprisingly coming from you, but it was a difficult module, so, let's go. Naruto led the way, and the two of them strolled together until they arrived at his house. Naruto led her up into his room as the two made their way inside. Naruto jumped on his bed as soon as they dropped their baggage, ignoring his mother's rule about wearing outside clothing at the time. That walk was brutal for me. I'm still sore from yesterday's workout. It was quite intense. He murmured this while staring towards the ceiling. He plainly meant his fight with Electro and his new abilities, creating extreme agony in his body just from mildly pushing himself. I bet, considering how much progress you made in such a short amount of time. Cindy answered by standing at the door and scanning the entire room. It's cleaner than she anticipated. His work desk was the only disorderly area of his room, aside from the clothes haphazardly hanging out of his dirty clothes hamper. When Naruto noticed her eyeing the desk, he leapt to his feet and began cleaning it. I'll get this out of the way. He muttered something. He was mortified by the disarray and the possibility that she had seen his nerdy drawings on the table, particularly his designs of future hero outfits. She noticed his Game Boy in the corner while he dusted the desk. No way, you still have one of these, too? She reached for it and turned it on before settling in one of his seats, as if she was already at ease there. Yeah, it was given to me on my 8th birthday. It was my parents' final gift to me. With a mournful look, he told her. I still play it now and then. For the longest time, I was mostly limited to that one game. I see. She smiled softly as well, realizing how much that must have been meant to him. Maybe we could trade sometime. Yeah, we should. There was a brief pause as things became awkward, but Naruto quickly returned to the subject of math. Anyways, should we begin? He motioned to his now empty desk. They sat down at his desk and started working on their math homework together. Naruto would occasionally glance at her face as he retaught her the lesson. He'd find himself studying her lovely face because he was so near to her, something he'd never really gotten the chance to do before. During their study session, he was frequently taken aback by her attractiveness to the point where he forgot what he was saying. Cindy would steal glances at Naruto while he was concentrating on the problems he was working on, unbeknownst to him. She would often nervously bite the eraser on her pencil as he explained how to solve the problems after she seemed to be perplexed by them. When he's concentrating like that, he's very cute. As she looked up at his focused demeanor, she thought to herself. His brows furrowed, and his eyes glowed with concentration. It was the same expression he'd put on while working as a vigilante. Naruto could see her biting the eraser of her pencil out of the corner of his eye, but he feigned not to notice her focused look. Oh my goodness, she's stunning. As he worked on the problem, he thought to himself. After approximately an hour of collaborating on the homework, the two awkward teenagers had completed it. If they'd worked on it together, they'd be able to finish it in a matter of minutes, but the unspoken love tension distracted them both. I think I get it now, Cindy told him as she nipped the end of her pencil. This was, once again, a falsehood. When the teacher first taught it in class, she already knew everything. That's great. It wasn't so difficult, was it? The teacher just explained it in an odd way. Naruto smiled shyly, uncomfortably stroking the back of his head as he closed his notebook and put it to the side. Cindy gave a nod. Yeah, he's very perplexing. Naruto, you should consider becoming a teacher. I'd go to every class. Her look was harsh, but she giggled as she talked. So, what should I do now? She inquired, looking up at him submissively. I don't know, he replied, absolutely taken aback by her eyes cutting through his heart. His heart was pounding so loudly that he was scared the entire neighborhood could hear it. They both sat next to one another without saying anything. They both wanted to say something to make a move right then and there, but they were both terrified. The awkward pause seemed to linger hours, but it had only been about 3 seconds at this time. Maybe this is my chance. Naruto thought to himself, quite confidently. I literally fought an electric man while lifting a 40-ton crane. This is insignificant. Stop being such a wuss. Should I initiate contact? Cindy questioned herself in her thinking. The two teenagers exchanged glances as if they were thinking the same thing. When they made eye contact, Naruto's eyes averted, and Cindy's face turned crimson red. Naruto immediately regained his bravery and gazed squarely at Cindy, leading her to look up at him once more. Naruto placed his hand on hers, which was resting on her thigh, as the two locked gaze. He was ready to make his move at this point. Cindy. Naruto began, but before he could finish, Cindy's phone surprised them both and jolted them back into reality. Cindy rushed over and frantically grabbed her phone, fumbling with it. It's my mom, she told him before picking up the phone. Hi, Mom. Yes. I'm visiting a friend. No. Okay, I'll be there shortly. She hung up the phone and returned her gaze to Naruto. My mother wants me to come home. I didn't tell her I was coming over here. I should leave. No. Naruto interjected, hesitating as he realized his voice had become much louder than he had planned. No, you should not return on your own. I'll accompany you home. Naruto walked her home, which wasn't too far from his house. Even if it would only take him 5 minutes to swing there, it was a 30-minute walk. The walk wasn't awkward in the least because the two spoke as they typically did. They couldn't help but wonder about the what-ifs. The two stood face to face in front of her house, both regretting not making a move when they had the opportunity. Well, I'll see you tomorrow, Cindy responded, shyly rubbing her arm. Yeah, see you tomorrow, Naruto replied by putting his hands in his pockets. Cindy started advancing toward the door, leading Naruto to speak again. Oh, that's something we should do again. I like working with others. It was fun. Naruto grinned as he stated this, prompting Cindy to reciprocate. Of course we should. Goodbye, Naruto. Cindy then entered the complex by opening the entrance. She took one final glance at Naruto before waving goodbye and locking the door behind her. Naruto's inner voice yelled so loudly that it was practically audible to the outer world as soon as the door closed. I stumbled. I was so close, yet I held back. That was my one and only chance. Naruto wanted to fall to his knees and scream, but because he was in public, he chose to merely stand there like the miniature form of himself in his mind. After a while of peering at her door, she moved away and crawled up a nearby building. The hero began assembling his costume by reaching into his backpack. Though she was a little frightening, especially the way she was approaching him, he wanted to speak with Black Cat about what she knew about the magia. The time for usual boy things was past. It was time to delegate authority to his other half. He hadn't forgiven himself for his mother's death, nor had he forgiven those who had murdered her. He could, however, sense that his vengeance was near. At least, he persuaded himself. The emptiness within him would be filled when his mother was avenged. The phantom spider, dressed to the nines, knocked on the glass window of Black Cat's patio. If everything went right, he'd find the magia that night, which would take him to Herman Schultz, his mother's murderer. He did, however, require information from Black Cat first. Felicia opened the door in a flash, wearing nothing but black pajama trousers and a baggy white t-shirt. The hero realized she wasn't wearing anything beneath the shirt, but he kept a stern stare on her unmasked face. "Hey, Spider." Felicia spoke in her sensuous tone. "I didn't think you'd visit me again so soon." "It's not for the reason you think. I brought the clothes I borrowed, but I have a question for you. Something important." The hero's speech was monotone, and his eyes from beneath his goggles looked viciously into hers. His stare almost startled her because she was used to him having the eyes of a lost dog. "Okay. Come on in then." After being granted permission, the dark hero entered her home and sat across from her at a table. The feline began pouring herself a drink, her gaze fixed on the hero as if she were giving him one. "I don't drink." He remarked this while waving his hand, causing Felicia to giggle slightly. "You're really playing that model hero role perfectly, huh, Spider-Man?" She remarked this just as she took a sip from her cup. "It's not playing a role," the hero stated emphatically. "I think I want to help people. I'm not sure, I just get into trances where I feel compelled to intervene when people are in danger." Felicia arched an eyebrow as she continued to drink from her cup. "Heroes kill nowadays?" Felicia inquired, jolting Spider-Man to his core. How did she find out about that? Naruto pondered. There were rumors that he was responsible for Fisk's death, but she seemed positive that it was him. "What do you mean?" he inquired, holding his composure at bay and sounding as if he honestly didn't understand what he meant. That facade, however, was nothing more than a translucent barrier that Felicia could see right through. "Did you kill Fisk? I mean, you're the only hero in town these days besides the Fantastic Four, and that wasn't their idea. You also mentioned him in your sleep the other day while I was sewing you up." She is smarter than she appears, Naruto thought to himself, mistaking her for a woman with a nice face. The hero sat calmly, staring blankly at the table as he reflected on his previous acts. He couldn't recall having another nightmare about Fisk while Black Cat was ministering to his wounds. "Didn't you do it? Didn't you? It's all right. I don't perceive you any differently." Felicia reached out and took the boy's hand in hers, consoling him while his mind raced. "Would you like to talk about it? It's perfectly fine if you don't." When her thumb stroked against his, the emotionally fragile boy opened up to her. "He murdered someone I genuinely care about. Someone who means a lot to me. So I murdered him. That is hardly noble or heroic." Felicia's eyes were empathetic, despite the fact that he did not glance up at her while he talked. Despite not knowing the boy's genuine name, she cared about him. "I'm sorry." Felicia spoke in hushed tones. "You know, something similar happened to me when I was close to your age." The hero's gaze slowly rose from the table to meet Felicia's. Her expression was serious, but she continued speaking. "My ex-lover. He didn't take no for an answer one day. I wanted to kill him after what he did to me. I was overwhelmed by wrath and loathing, and I wanted to torture him, but he died in a car accident before I could reach him. To this day, I wish I had delivered the deadly blow, but I must learn to live with it." There was a brief silence between the two as neither knew what to say to the other. "My point is that it's fine to exact vengeance, Spider. Fisk deserved to be a splatter of blood on the ground. I feel no sorrow for him, just as my ex did, and I wouldn't even if I were the one who killed him. Fisk is unworthy of your pity." She is correct. He earned it. Stop being such a wuss and get the job done. His inner voice instructed him, prompting the child behind the mask to allow that part of himself to take the lead. Before speaking again, the young man looked Felicia in the eyes with stone-cold gaze. "It isn't the same. I don't feel sorry for Fisk. It's someone else's fault. Felicia was his daughter. I took him from her." Felicia shook her head before frowning solemnly at Spider-Man. "Fisk was dangerous, and he may have put her in danger. Perhaps you didn't have a choice." Naruto paused for a moment, wondering if any of what she was saying was true. Perhaps she's correct. His thoughts halted briefly before returning to the photo frame on Fisk's desk when he murdered the Kingpin. But there's the photo. He had feelings for her, didn't he? Will he hurt her? Would others harm her as a result of him? Maybe. Perhaps she is correct. His more sensible inner voice was beginning to get drowned out by his more selfish half. His vengeful ego, the aspect of him that sought vengeance, was becoming the louder voice. No, she is correct. He was a pest. Black Cat continued to calm the kid despite his obvious confusion. Hello, Spider. We all make errors, but perhaps that wasn't one of them. As I already stated, it is okay to exact vengeance on those you love, Spider. The youngster nodded. Yeah, I tell myself that all the time. But who am I to pretend to be God? Do I truly have the authority to decide who lives and who dies? His rational inner voice spoke clearly. Fisk's assassin spoke once more. You are correct, Felicia. Thank you very much. She is correct, but why am I compelled to choose? Why am I allowed to make a decision? Why was I given this authority? His inner self spoke again, but this time, it was overshadowed by his other ideas. The vengeful Spider spoke again, this time getting to the point of why he had come to see her in the first place. I'd like to ask you a question. Can you tell me who the Magi are? Felicia could tell something was wrong with the young man despite not being able to see his face. Her grip on his hand tightened as she drew in closer. Are you all right? You appear. Fisk's assassin interrupted her with a sharp voice before she could continue. The Phantom Spider had successfully suppressed those boyish thoughts that felt sympathy, fear, and remorse. Naruto did not exist within him. He was just a stumbling block in his path to his goal. You're aware of the Magia. Tell me everything you know. Please, I'm not here for counseling. Killing Herman is the only thing that will save me. I'll be happy once it happens, which is why I can't let Fisk go. I'm not empathetic. I'm hungry. The cold-blooded killer gently retracted his hand from the table, astonishedly staring at Felicia. I need to know. That last line he spoke, I need to know, wasn't only about who the Magia were or where they were. He was curious about what might happen if he found out. What would become of Herman? Would he be willing to take his own life? Would something stop him? What happens to him when he kills him? What happens if he doesn't? Will he continue to feel guilty? Will he be satisfied? I do. I've been on the lookout for them for years, but they're dangerous. Felicia, like Naruto, became obsessed with the Magia after horrible occurrences in her past. The Magia, on the other hand, were far too powerful for her to handle on her own. Despite her self-assurance, she was terrified. They're not too dangerous for me. The Phantom spoke coldly, suppressing his sentiments of shame in order to finish his mission. They're not too dangerous for us. Black Cat added, her confidence soaring now that the young hero was by her side. Though the hero preferred to work alone, he could tell Black Cat was out for vengeance and didn't want to get in her way. It didn't matter who assisted Herman in the end as long as he was his. And with that, Black Cat geared up, and the two warriors swung across the city together, following Magia's trail. Black Cat was serious about this. She had insiders and spies she paid to gather information about them so she knew where they'd be that night. The Magia had planned a heist at the Museum of Modern Art. One of the world's most valuable paintings was being held there, and Magia sought to seize it for themselves to sell on the black market. The two combatants in black found themselves on top of the museum, looking down on the Magia members below. Except for one who donned a bright yellow costume with a fishnet pattern, they were all dressed in suits. There were two standouts among the others. A bald man wearing a suit with gray skin and a big albino man also wearing a suit. Do you know which one Herman Schultz is? Spider-Man inquired of the cat. I do. He's the yellow one. He's known as the Shocker. Naruto looked over at her, assuming she was making a joke, but she seemed dead serious. The big guy is Tombstone, and the little Russian one is Chameleon. He can shapeshift. She said this while pointing through the glass at each of them. The rest of these guys are just minions. Let's get rid of them first. The sight of his mother's murderer beneath him angered the child. In an instant, he had lost all sympathy for anyone, including himself. He was no longer concerned by his dreams, and he didn't even think about them. Felicia seemed to understand him, or so he thought at the moment. In his mind, the other side of him, the one he had to keep hidden from his pals, would not have been accepted by anybody else. Her own words. Her faith in him and his faith in her pushed him over the edge. His turbulent, fragile psyche was convinced that he was correct at the time. As Felicia pointed out, there's nothing wrong with vengeance. That's what he thought. All that mattered was that Herman Schultz was present and that his mother's death might finally be avenged. As Black Cat grabbed a gadget from her utility belt, Spider-Man nodded. The kitty began cutting a circle onto the glass ceiling with a miniature laser. Put your hand on it for me. As she continued to build the circle, she told Spider-Man R. As the circle was completed, the piece of glass detached from the rest of the ceiling and stuck to the hero's hand. He raised his hand and tossed the glass to the side before returning his gaze to the cat. "Remember, Herman is mine." As he crawled through the hole and onto the ceiling from the inside, he said. Black Cat trailed him, landing on a beam just below their entry point. There were roughly 20 guards spread throughout the museum, each wielding a different firearm. Using the darkness to his advantage, the phantom spider climbed on the ceiling until he was above 2 unsuspecting soldiers. He tugged a broom over with his webs, causing it to create a little sound that only those 2 guards could hear. Unknowing to them, it was the sign of their doom. They both turned to face the commotion, but only one approached it with his weapon drawn. The curious guard took a few hesitant steps into the darkness, directing his lamp toward the source of the commotion until he saw the overturned broom. He exhaled a sigh of relief before turning around and returning his gaze to the location where his buddy was last seen. His partner, on the other hand, was nowhere to be found. "Charles?" the guy inquired, searching the area quickly to see where his friend had gone. The thug's mind immediately began to think of Spider-Man. He was a legend among crooks at first, but his battle with Electro proved that he was genuine. The man was terrified, and he walked backward as he continued to survey the area. The goon's eyes widened as he pointed his gun at the ceiling, deciding to check above him. His partner was deafeningly silent, suspended from the ceiling like a work of art. Fearing for his life, the thug continued scouring the area with his flashlight even more furiously before finding the phantom spider's white insignia confronting him from above. The boy's limbs flashed blue as he pushed off the ceiling, smacking the guy in the face in an instant before he could even react. His body thudded to the ground, and the sound of his rifle sliding across the ground echoed throughout the building. A trio of guards reacted to the noise and began cautiously walking toward it from the opposite side. Black Cat, on the other hand, leapt from the roof, knocking out one of the gunmen and disarming the other 2 in one rapid swoop. The 2 guards attempted to punch the feline when she was disarmed, but because to her bad luck aura, which grants her exceptional luck during battles, the 2 crooks missed and knocked each other out with their fists. She didn't spot another gangsters creeping behind her with a knife as she stood over the 3 thugs in a confident attitude. Before he could attack her, the phantom spider came from the shadows and delivered a Godspeed kick to the crook's face. "Thanks, Spider," Felicia murmured seductively, despite the fact that the vengeful wraith was in a flow state. Without looking at her, he leapt into the darkness, removing the guards one by one. Eventually, Herman, a couple of guards, and the other 2 villains were able to open the case containing the painting they intended to steal. They were all unaware of what was going on and what was about to happen to them, but they'd find out soon enough. "Let's hurry up and deliver this to the boss," Shocker mumbled as he hurriedly approached the artwork. Knowing that subtlety was no longer an option due to the remaining Magia thugs banding together, the phantom spider emerged from the shadows, delivering a devastating punch to Chameleon's face, instantly incapacitating the villain. The goons all turned to confront him, their weapons drawn and aimed at the assassin. Before anyone could fire a shot, Black Cat sprang from the shadows, using her cat claw to draw one of the thugs toward her before performing a split kick to knock out 2 guards at once. Meanwhile, the phantom spider dashed forward Tombstone and landed a hard punch in the giant's face, sending him flying backward and colliding with an art piece. He was still alive, albeit bewildered, due to his augmented strength. All of this transpired in a matter of seconds, but chaos quickly ensued as the Shocker immediately pointed his fists toward Spider-Man before blasting him with a concussion blast. As he flipped uncontrolled into the darkness, Spider-Man's body flew backward, bursting through a concrete pillar. Shocker took his place, leaving Black Cat alone with the rest of the guards and Tombstone. Knowing she was on her own, the cat burglar sprinted at the robbers, evading their bullets with no effort because of her bad luck aura. She cut one in the face with her claws, avoiding bullets before knocking out the other with a fast kick to the face. Tombstone leapt from the ground and began rushing at the cat as soon as her kick hit. She easily avoided his strike, but her counterattacks of punches and kicks had little effect on the villain due to his superhuman power and her being nothing more than a human. For a moment, the 2 fought until Tombstone was able to seize the feline, holding her up by the leg before grasping her face with both hands. The monster began crushing her head with his immense strength, causing her brain to feel as if it were going to burst out her ears. The phantom spider climbed to his feet as Shocker leapt toward him while the fight between Black Cat, the minions, and Tombstone continued. To ensure that the Shocker was who he was looking for, the phantom spider held back as he punched his mother's killer in the chest with a still powerful Godspeed strike. Aside from wanting to know who he was, Herman felt he deserved to suffer, so he planned to die slowly and painfully. he was also likely to know something about Project V. The Shocker, while terrifying to others, was a farce to the now Godspeed-powered Phantom Spider. The enraged ghost raced forward, grabbing the Shocker's throat and ripping off his mask. The man was Herman Schultz, just as he had hoped. He recognized him from the footage in his mother's records. Naruto was fully gone at that point. He was overcome with rage, wrath, and pain. "You." The specter snarled at his mother's murderer. "I'll make sure you suffer as I did." Before the child could do anything else, his spider sense went into overdrive in his thoughts. He looked over to see Black Cat's skull being forcibly crushed together by Tombstone, her hand reaching out to the Spider-Man as if subconsciously asking for his assistance. Using Godspeed, the hero flew over and delivered an even more powerful punch to Tombstone's jaw, this time inflicting some damage on the huge. The monster yelled and attempted to strike the child, but he easily sidestepped it by utilizing Godspeed before firing an uppercut to the big's jaw once more. Tombstone leapt into the air, allowing the Phantom Spider to web his face and bring him back down to earth. The child charged his fist with Godspeed energy and socked the powerful behemoth with all he had, sending the man flying through one of the museum walls and disappearing into nothingness. As he peered down at the injured Black Cat, the little kid within the ghost battled his way back from the depths of his mind. "Are you okay?" he spoke as he stooped down toward Felicia, completely forgetting about Shocker. The sound of glass shattering as the Shocker attempted to flee, however, roused the killer from within, leading him to turn around and step out of the building. Shocker could be seen in the distance leaping from building to building with his concussion blasts, albeit his speed would soon be dwarfed by the Phantom Spiders. The vigilante pushed himself toward Shocker's direction, screaming as he landed on buildings, Flash stepping off of them and using his webs to tug himself forward to maintain his pace. "Come back here, Shocker. You can't get away from me." As though hunting a turtle, the murderer declared as he began to gain on the criminal. The Shocker looked back, shocked that he had caught up. Though his face was hidden beneath his mask, the villain's expression was filled with anxiety. He knew he was going to perish at the hands of the Phantom Spider, but he still rushed for his life. "I'll chase you to the ends of the earth." The enraged Phantom roared once more, determined to pursue the Shocker no matter how far he ran. "Herman." The Phantom yelled, his limbs flashing brilliant with Godspeed energy, as he continued to savagely pursue the guy who murdered his mother. The costumed assassin moved from building to building like a free runner, striding forward fast with Godspeed and driving himself forward with his webs. Shocker tried everything he could, but he couldn't escape the Phantom Spider's clutches. The shadow was right on the Shocker's tail in no time, so the yellow-costumed villain fired another concussion blast at his pursuer, sending him crashing into a nearby hotel building. The Shocker was terrified. He knew he had no chance after witnessing what the youngster had done to his partners, but fighting was his only option. The Shocker leapt into the hotel building, where he found himself inside an empty hotel room, chasing after the man who was formerly his pursuer. Where the hell did he missed the spider perched above the hole in the wall behind him. Before he could finish his sentence, Herman was met with a strong kick to the back of the head, sending him hurtling toward the room's door. He smashed through the front door of the hotel room, launching himself into the corridor. The ghost was already on top of him by the time he landed on his hands and knees, springing into the air and pushing against the ceiling with his two Godspeed-coated hands. The ghost dive kicked his mother's assassin in the back of the neck with enormous force. The Shocker was propelled through the floor by the force of the amazing kick, landing in the passageway beneath the two warriors. As he attempted to regain his bearings, his back smashed against the ground, knocking the wind out of him. Despite the fact that his special armor was designed to protect him from physical and electric damage, the Phantom Spider's punches stung like hell, and they weren't even close to his maximum strength. Herman looked up to watch his Reaper slingshot himself downwards again, this time from a floor above, using two webs. The Shocker was too sluggish to react as his killer stepped down on his body with incredible force. The powerful attack smashed the two through numerous stories of the structure, as if the floor were made of paper match. The noises of civilians screaming and fleeing could hardly be heard as they broke through each floor due to the overwhelming volume of the killer's brawl. The two eventually ended up on the ground, leading the few others in the hallway to flee for their life. Now that their speed had slowed, the ghost began to punch the Shocker in the head. However, before the punch could be delivered, he was pulled skyward by the Shocker's tremendous gauntlets and thrown back through the holes they had just created. The propulsion blast's momentum returned him to the level they began on, yet the momentum did not stop until he blasted through 3 stories above where they began. He slammed into one of the ceilings after his acceleration halted, only to be hit by a gut punch from the Shocker, throwing him down the hallway. He hadn't expected his mother's killer to be so ferocious, so the child chose to use more of his strength as his body soared uncontrolled along the corridor, coming to a halt. The shocker wiped some of the rubble off his shoulder and sped up his approach to the youngster. The phantom spider sprang up on his 2 feet, generating a bright blue aura around his limbs, ready for a counterattack. He then kicked his foot off the ground, leaving a crater in his wake, and continued moving forward while praying to Godspeed. He reached Herman in 3 steps and punched him in the chest with extraordinary force. Due to the ferocity of the strike, the furious spider took 1 stride forward utilizing Godspeed, which flashed him forward nearly 15 feet quickly. He didn't realize it yet, but he was gaining stronger with each passing second of that struggle. The teenage assassin drew a web from his wrist and attached it to the shocker before drawing him in close for a devastating strike to the face. Crack! The thunderous roar of Godspeed's energy could be heard throughout the hotel. The lights flickered as the punch was delivered. As the shocker's body began to fly away in the opposite direction, the phantom spider dragged him again, this time slamming his mother's killer in the chest with a Godspeed kick. Crack! The shocker was sent flying backward once more, only to be hit by another web to the chest. As if the shocker were a paddle ball, the kid Spartan kicked him backward and yanked him back toward himself. The lights would flicker with each kick, darkening the entire corridor, only to be lighted by the boy's Godspeed energy before the lights would brighten up the hall again. Crack! Click! Crack! Click! Crack! Click! Crack! Click! Crack! Click! The thunderous noises of Godspeed-infused kicks were heard repeatedly, followed by the sound of lights flickering and Herman groaning in pain. The hero tugged Herman back one last time before striding forward, making a crater in the ground as he launched a devastating straight right punch, striking the shocker in the chest. Crack! *ZZT. The shocker would have been turned to mush if it hadn't been wearing the suit, but the spider knew this and let himself go all out with that blow. Herman's corpse was propelled flying down the corridor, causing him to break through not just a hotel door but also a window, sending him flying aimlessly outside. Though he attempted to restore his balance as he flew uncontrolled in the air, the phantom spider was already on him as if he had teleported. The killer spider, glowing with Godspeed energy, hit Herman in the head, sending him falling into the train tracks below them. Herman was hardly conscious at this point, simply seeing blurs and hearing the sound of an approaching train. He turned his head, only seeing the lights as the train accelerated at his immobile body. The shocker began to accept his fate before the train wrecked his nearly lifeless body. His life flashed before his eyes at that instant, but he had no regrets. When he looked up towards the sky, the last thing he saw was the white emblem on the phantom spider's chest approaching him. Ha! The shocker's eyes widened when he found himself inside an abandoned train car deep under the metropolis. He wasn't wearing his costume anymore, and he was strapped to a bench with his arms webbed behind his back. He couldn't move a muscle since his body was webbed down to the seat. The phantom spider chose this location to ensure that no one heard the shocker, or rather, Herman Schultz, scream. Herman looked over to see his outfit on the ground in front of him, but his gauntlets were missing. Where the hell am I? As he continued to examine the area for clues, the ex-Fisk minion mumbled to himself. Hearing this, the phantom spider jumped inside the train car, shocking the shocker who was clutching the thug's gauntlets. These are quite advanced. Did you make these on your own? Herman remained silent as the ghost axed his mother's assassin in a terrifying tone. It's funny, you had to have some engineering background, right? But you threw it all away to pursue a criminal career. How long did it take you to perfect these vibro shock gauntlets? They could have murdered you with just one mistake. You could have blown off your arms. The spider spoke again as if he knew the guy, but Herman did not answer. Phantom Spider put down his gauntlets and grabbed up a rusted metal rod, approaching the villain with the metal weapon balanced on his shoulder. The scrap metal began to light brightly with Godspeed energy, a new talent the youngster seems to have found while the shocker slept. You know, I was looking for something to beat you with while you were sleeping, and I discovered that I can transfer my energy onto metallic objects. I'm not sure why I never thought of trying it. His Godspeed enhanced, rusted rod shined brightly as he approached his mother's assassin, placing the hot metal on the half-naked villain's chin before speaking down to him in an impersonal and repetitive manner. I'll be completely honest with you, Herman. You will perish here. Let's go right to it, and I'll make sure it's quick, okay? The tormentor dug into his jeans pocket and pulled out his cell phone, going through his photo gallery until he came upon a shot of the man shaking hands with Wilson Fisk. Do you know who this guy is in the photo? Herman laughed. Wilson Fisk. This enraged the hero, prompting him to carefully insert the electrified metal rod into the shocker's chest, taking care not to damage any organs. As the weapon sank deeply into the shocker's flesh, Blood gushed from his mouth, and he began coughing up blood. Dumbfuck, I know who Wilson Fisk is. I murdered him. Can you identify the man in the suit? The spider held the weapon in place, peering intently into Herman's eyes. His eyes, however, were not those of a murderer. They were terrified, precisely like Herman's eyes. However, neither noticed how horrified the other was at the time. No way. Herman chuckled slightly, forcing blood to flow from his mouth. Are you the one who did it? Some youngster. The phantom spider dug deeper into Herman's chest, causing him to scream in agony. The child spoke, leaning in close, his boyish voice beginning to burst through his vicious facade. I'm not a child. Not any longer. Please respond to the question. I'm not sure who the dude is. It's only a hand. Shocker admits lying. You do know. The phantom spider moved his hand, indicating to Herman that he was about to twist his electric weapon as it burned the inside of his chest. I don't. I swear to God. Herman hurriedly shook his head. This was a deception, unbeknownst to the boy. Herman would prefer to die than reveal such information. He wouldn't risk the consequences of speaking. What do you know about Project V then? The boy spoke again, this time with a reverse grip on the electrified rod. His voice had warmed up. It was getting frenzied and brittle. Where did you hear about that? Shocker yelled, raising the boy's brows beneath his mask. What exactly do you mean by that? What exactly is it? The boy inquired, knowing that the response would be unsatisfactory. I'm not sure who made it, but it's like a virus. It drives the host nuts, making him want to eat people and procreate or whatever. Look, kid, you have to stop or heal. Before the father could finish, the child slowly twisted the rod before barking additional commands at him. Who? Who exactly is he? I'm not going to tell you. Assassinate me. I'm going to die if he finds out I opened my goddamn lips. Kill me, you filthy coward. The shocker confronted the child, knowing he was already dead. If you tell me, I'll spare you. Please. The youngster implored, but his words fell on deaf ears. Fuck. You. My life is unimportant to me. If he discovers I spoke, I won't be his only target. My parents will be next. I won't tell anyone who told me if you just fucking spit it out. The youngster yelled, but it made no difference. The shocker had already decided on his fate. I won't. I'm not putting my family at risk for some kid. The boy hesitated after hearing those final remarks, which reminded him of some of Fisk's final words before brutalizing him. He remembered Fisk's daughter. He remembered his mum. He reflected on what Black Cat had told him. Naruto reflected on all that had been going on in his brain for the past few months. The nightmarish visions, the shame, his sentiments of inadequacy and remorse. After this, they'd all be gone. That's what he told himself, at least. Naruto was then overcome by fresh emotions, frustration, confusion. How come he chose this life when he had a family? Does it make me any different if I chose to steal his life? Is it worth it to make his family feel my anguish? Killing him does not benefit anyone. It just serves to perpetuate the cycle of sorrow. He wishes to die. I'll give him a gift, while those who were not involved in my mother's killing will suffer. He might be lying. The phantom spider muttered to himself. So, with his eyes closed, Naruto removed the blade and raised his arm, holding his Godspeed-infused sword high above his head. Murder him. He's no longer useful to you. His inner voice required of him, despite the fact that the youngster could only stare at the man in front of him with soulless eyes. At long last, you'll be able to revenge her, his inner voice spoke up. She may rest easy now that you finally got him. The same sound tempted him again, but this time it was louder. Do it right now. The same voice screamed, driving the youngster over the brink and sealing his fate. Knock asterisk. Knock asterisk. Knock. Naruto knocked 3 times on the window of Black Cat's apartment, summoning the feline to open her doors for him despite having blood all over his costume and the body language of a broken man. His eyes, concealed beneath the shadow that covered his face, were emotionless. He felt nothing as he stood there, once again while heavy rain poured behind him, just like Fisk. No joy. There is no sadness. There is no satisfaction. There is no pain. Nothing, just nothingness. Spider-Man? Felicia inquired, terrified by his commanding presence yet sympathetic to his now unknown situation. There was a long quiet between the two, but it was quickly shattered by Naruto Parker's defeated comments. I couldn't do it. Felicia's eyes widened when he spoke. I let my mom's killer walk. As the youngster stated, he did not murder the man who murdered his mother. Naruto Parker spared Herman Schultz, the shocker, but he would spend the rest of his life in prison. The hero decided to phone Yuri Watanabe shortly after the interrogation and notify her of the museum robbery and the deaths of Fisk's victims in which the three were implicated. Yuri and her squad detained all of the Magia members at the museum, including the Shocker, Chameleon, and Tombstone. I'm a coward. The young hero addressed the silver-haired feline while remaining motionless. He required assistance, only she was aware of his secret. He needed Felicia right now, nothing else. Felicia clasped the hero in her arms, knowing she was the only one he could turn to. The young hero placed his arms around her and began to silently cry, though his mask concealed them from her. Spider, you're not a coward. You made the correct decision. She talked softly into the boy's ear, quickly comforting him. However, you stated it yourself. I should exact my vengeance. The boy spoke in a feeble voice. No way, Spider. I stated that vengeance is acceptable. Being the bigger man is also acceptable. It elevates you above the rest. What did you say to me earlier? You didn't pretend to be a hero, did you? Slowly, the hero nodded. Look at me. Felicia spoke up, her clawed, gloved hands gripping the young man's face and forcing their gazes to connect. You made the correct decision. Okay. As she spoke, she slowly removed the boy's mask with her thumb, revealing his tightly closed, quivering mouth. She brushed his tears away with her thumbs. You did the right thing, she repeated herself, her gaze fixed on his. The phantom spider then seized her chin with both hands and kissed her passionately on the lips. This startled her because he was generally shy and reserved, but he made the first approach. He had no idea what had come over him at the time. Naruto Parker would never do such a thing. Perhaps his alter identity and disguise provided him with the confidence he lacked when he was simply himself. Maybe it was because he felt safe with her at the time. He had the impression that she understood him. No, she was aware of the phantom spider, not him. When he realized this, he drew back, peering down at her with startled eyes. I'm sorry, Felicia instantly locked lips with the young hero again before he could continue his explanation, forcing him back into the rain as the two kissed passionately once more. It didn't feel right. At the same time, it seemed so natural, for them both. He did, however, gradually push her away from him. I apologize. Thank you very much. He couldn't think of anything to say right now. He couldn't believe what had just occurred to him. Felicia gave a little smile before tormenting the young hero. Cat got your tongue? For the first time, the hero exhaled jokingly, revealing a glimpse of his smile to Felicia. Yeah, kind of. I had to leave. Thank you so much for everything. You are correct. About me. Yeah. The boy awkwardly turned around, preparing to leap from her building. Felicia grabbed his arm and pulled him back, stopping him from going. Wait. She spoke quietly. You are welcome to spend the night, if you want. The child gave a bitter smile that quickly faded. He adjusted his mask to cover the lower half of his face before speaking again, his voice now muffled. I'm sorry, but I can't. I really shouldn't. This is not something we should be doing. I apologize. The phantom spider swung away before Felicia could finish her sentence, retreating into the dark, wet night. The hero reflected on his life and his two halves as he swung through the pouring rain. The phantom spider and Naruto Parker, the hero and the loser. The powerful and the weak, the genius and the rash. The two slackers. He then reflected on what had just occurred, understanding that his feelings, notably about two people, had become much more difficult. Naruto Parker had feelings for Cindy Moon, but the phantom spider was madly in love with the black cat. His thoughts quickly returned to the museum robbery and how he had simply let the police handle it. Giving up revenge was dreadful at first, but it felt like a weight was lifted from his chest. He no longer felt vengeful. There will be no more rage. There will be no more animosity. He simply felt content. He had planned to kill the man who had murdered his mother that day, but he couldn't bring himself to do it, and he didn't regret his decision. This action, on the other hand, may have unintended repercussions. Whether it is a matter of days, weeks, months, or even years, every action has repercussions. The black cat will appear again. To be continued.
That's it for this podcast. For listening to this video, I hope you did enjoy this story, and if it did, like, share, and subscribe for more. And thank you all for your support, and have a great day.